Good morning, everyone. This is Deb Smith, editor of Rug Hooking Magazine. If you're looking for the Art of Hooked Landscapes book launch event, you're in the right place. We'll be starting in just a few minutes when everyone has had a chance to connect. We'll be with you soon. I see that there are people signing in. We'll wait 2 more minutes so everyone has a chance to join. We'll start the event at 1 minute past the hour. Good morning, everyone. This special event is brought to you by Rug Hooking Magazine. I'm Deborah Smith, editor of Rug Hooking Magazine, now working from my home in South Central Pennsylvania, and watching the leaves turn colors here in the Northeast. I've been editor since 2009, working with textile artists and rug hookers around the world to create 5 issues each year for you. And I work with rug hooking authors, writers, and teachers like Molly Colegrove to produce quality books. If you love rug hooking, you will love what we have to offer. We've been published since 1989, bringing you all the best from the world of rug hooking. We have a free newsletter called Rug Beat, 5 colorful print issues of Rug Hooking Magazine each year, and a book club where we publish and present to you 4 rug hooking books from top-notch rug hooking artists and teachers. Be sure to check out everything that we have to offer. First, let's address a few housekeeping issues. If you get disconnected, you can reconnect using the same link. You will not be interrupting the talk. We are recording today's webinar, so if you have technical difficulties, don't worry. We'll send you a link and you can watch it later. And it will be posted on the Rug Hooking website very soon. The interview with Molly was pre-recorded, so we don't have the Q&A on for this event. If you'd like to order this book, visit the Rug Hooking Magazine website. For book club members, the price is $23.95. We'll give you a link later. In fact, we'll send you all the links later when we send you the link to the video so that you can use them at your convenience. First up, let's take a short tour through the book. Molly shares her unique techniques with us, combining hooking with quilting and thread painting. On the right-hand page, you'll see that she gives examples of how she goes from a photograph to an enhanced photograph to the final hooked piece, complete with her hooking and her other embellishments. Molly likes wonky houses, a bit of whimsy in her hooking. Here we see that whimsy in a traditional hooked piece, embellished with all kinds of buttons and baubles, photos, and quillies. It's a super example of just how we can all expand our ideas of rug hooking. On the left is one of Molly's three-dimensional pieces, a hooked house. What a great example of thinking outside the box or off the two-dimensional backing. Here's another spread from the book. Molly is full of suggestions on how to use your rug hooking skills in new ways. You are sure to pick up on many ideas that it may not have been part of your rug hooking toolkit. But Molly shows us how she does it, and I love following along with her and understanding her thought process. Molly is a big fan of plein air rug hooking. She loves to get out into the world with her hooking. While she has a great studio and home full of supplies, she enjoys venturing out into the landscape to hook in plein air. She packs up her car with supplies, drawing paper, pencils, watercolors, her camera, a frame, and wool strips in her chosen palette, and she heads out for a day of adventure. This book illustrates her process from photo to final hooked piece. Inspiring for sure. Molly gave us one of her signature landscape pieces, one of her signature landscape patterns in the book for anyone to use. The Road to Naples is the name of this piece, and it depicts an autumn scene not far from her home. Of course, it includes a barn and colorful trees and fields. And just look at that sky. Molly provides the pattern for anyone who would like to hook this iconic rural scene. After reading the book, you'll have a few more tricks up your sleeves to help you tackle this landscape and make it your own. So now it's time to meet Molly. I caught up with her 2 weeks ago in her studio in upstate New York. I wanted to get her thoughts on art, rug hooking, and writing a book, and her approach to her art. So let's see what she has to say. Artist Molly Colegrove has a love affair with barns and the landscapes that surround them. Her new book is like taking a walk with her through her beloved New York State. She explains many of her tricks and techniques for reproducing a rural landscape in wool. Molly uses wool strips and wool yarn along with many alternative fibers and techniques to hook her lovely pieces, and she shares her hard-earned knowledge with us. She incorporates quilting, roving, felting, beads, embroidering, and much more with her hooking. Capturing clouds and skies, water and fields, trees and mountains, Molly has her own approach to translating a landscape into wool. The art of hooked rug landscapes describes how she does it. Molly's a native of upstate New York and has never strayed far from her birthplace. She learned her love of fiber arts from her mother. She earned a studio arts degree, but upon graduating realized that there weren't a lot of jobs in that field. Thus began her journey that led her to the wonderful world of rug hooking, where she's become a widely recognized and sought after teacher. She hooks and teaches from her home studio in Newark, New York, and that's where we find her right now. So Molly, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I have lived in this area all my life. I have 4 children and a wonderfully supportive husband. I don't think I could have done this journey without my husband, because it's you don't always get a lot of monetary payback back. And basically most of my life has just been kind of making things and creating things with just to satisfy my soul without bringing a lot of income in. So I have to say I've been very blessed and fortunate to have the family that I have. And also he took all the pictures for the book too, which was a wonderful, wonderful experience for both of us to kind of work together on it. And it was so good to have his support and his input in what looked good and what didn't too. My father has been another support, because as I was growing up, he took us everywhere, and most of our vacations and our trips were all to historical places where I learned a lot about folk art and how people made art long ago. And I don't think I would have been as interested in rug hooking as I am if I hadn't learned that at a young age. And then I have 4 children who are all very different and in doing very, very different careers, and none of them really do anything with art except for one daughter.
How old are your kids now? Are they all young adults or?
Yep. One is in his late 30s and he's a vice principal, and the next one is about 35 and she's a social worker, And then the next one is a librarian, and she also likes to paint, and she's about 32. And then the youngest one has a doctorate in physics, and
Wow.
he was working in New York City on Wall Street because apparently they need a lot of people that have doctorates in physics, but he doesn't. He does just academics. So, but he says it does take a lot of creative thinking to do physics too. So I think all of them are pretty much creative thinkers. So that's a good thing to pass on.
Yes, they got that from their mom, probably from their dad too.
Yeah, yes, from their dad too, because he's as creative thinker as I am. And he did actually go to school for art himself, but ended up working at Kodak for many years. So.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get started in textile arts, specifically in rug hooking?
Well, I started very young. When we would go to those places, like historical, all the different places, I would buy cross stitch kits from the time I was like 10 and 11. They would give you a little package cross stitch kit. And so I had a lot of those, and I would work them up and give them away for Christmas presents when I was in my early teens. And then when I was probably between the ages of 15 to 17, I had a wonderful art teacher, and we could design our own art classes. So we could do mini classes, and we could do any kind of art class we wanted to. So I would do mini classes, and I would do like macrame or weaving. So it would just be a wonderful way to get my feet wet in the whole field of fiber. And then after I got married and had kids, I started noticing a lot of people had hooked rugs as decorations, like on their walls. And I thought this would be a nice way that I could kind of decorate our house without spending a lot of money. So first I tried to buy old ones and repair them, but that turned out to actually be harder than just making them from scratch. So I ended up.
That was a good way to learn about what a hooked rug is, though.
Yes. And it taught me the ones that, these are the ones that last a long time and what to avoid. And you could kind of tell when you pick them up, and if little fibers fell out of them, that the burlap was not strong and they were not going to stay together well, no matter what you did. So it did teach me a lot about, if I wanted to make a rug that was going to last a long time, exactly how I needed to make it. But it was hard at that time because this was probably in the mid to late 80s, and there weren't a lot of people teaching rug hooking back then. So I had a hard time finding a teacher. So I ended up mostly just getting books out of the library, and for the most part, kind of teaching myself.
So speaking of teaching, you are a teacher. Do you travel a lot to teach, or do you teach mostly from home?
I actually don't teach too much. I teach sometimes in the area, but mostly just like at little studios that just do rug hooking maybe once or twice a year. And most of the time I travel, if I'm able to. We have grandchildren that we watch a lot. So that has come into play. And I have an elderly father too that ends up needing a lot of assistance on things. Things keep breaking, and he just so those kinds of obligations kind of tend to keep us around our house much, more of the time.
Keeps you at home. Yeah. So are we sitting in your studio now? Are you sitting in your studio?
I think the whole house is more or less our studio, because my husband does a lot of artwork too. So we both do. We kind of have the whole house. We have like one room is more for like ceramics and copper enameling and glassware that's in there. And then this room is just I have spinning wheels all over the place. And then the other room has like some looms, because these are all things we both like to do. So, and then there's a room upstairs that has like the rug hooking wool. So there's things like that.
It sounds like it would be a great place to come and visit and have show me around. A lot of things to look at.
It's very hard to keep it like any kind of organized, but because every time you do a new craft or something, it takes a lot of supplies. So there's just a lot of supplies everywhere.
Well, that's where that term creative chaos comes from, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, why did you want to write a book?
I think the real reason I really wanted to write a book was because I have different ways of doing things, just because I taught myself. And maybe I thought to myself that really they might be ways other people might like to know, because they might be things they might want to learn or incorporate into their own work. And I just thought it might be a fun thing to do.
Well, now that you're finished, was it a fun thing to do?
It was fun, but it was so
It's
different. than I
difficult.
thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so many things that you have to know that I had no idea. I just thought
Yeah.
you wrote it and then that was it. It was over. But it's not really like that. And then there's so many little things you have to think about along the way. So it ended up being it was an interesting process, and it taught me a lot, and I learned a lot from it.
Well, you had you had a family issue in the middle of that too, right? Did you lose your mom
I
during
lost
the time
my mom.
you were writing? So
Yes.
that
Yeah.
certainly
And that was,
complicated
it was kind of
your life.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of, and then when she passed away, she had just gone into the hospital from her house. And so that was very unexpected. So we had to figure out what to do with her house and all her belongings during COVID. So it was confusing, and it
Yeah.
was,
It's
so
been a tough 2 or 3 years for sure. Yeah.
it has
Yeah.
for everybody.
Well, your product, your book is lovely. So, you did a great job with it. So you're well known for your landscapes, and you're also known for your imaginative 3-dimensional vessels.
Yeah.
We see a few of those in the book. Do you have anything to hand that you can show us quickly?
I have there's a bird. Here's a bird.
A bird? Oh my gosh.
It's a big bird.
He's pretty big.
A lot of them are quite big. And then you can't see the fish. Oh, stay there, bird.
We see the looks like a wooden fish there behind you. Is that a wooden fish?
This is peas in a pod.
Oh,
But they're big. And there's big peas.
So why did you do that?
I just like peas in a pod for some reason. And then there's this is the one my granddaughter likes because it has a bug. It's a big, big flower. And I like to incorporate these weird, like, architectural things with it. This is a big flower, and she likes the bug. So the bug has gotten kind of destroyed because she plays with it. And then this is you probably can't even see this, but it's a big fish.
And that's hooked?
Yep. This is all hooked.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can see it now. Wow.
And he's on a big pedestal thing, like a big architectural thing.
You have an interesting mind, Molly.
This one, these are kind of funny because this one, the dog got really mad at me while I was hooking it because it's like a little anemone or something, but I wanted it to have spiky things. So you know how you get those dog toys the dog had some toys that had like little latex things. I would sit on the bed and I would be hooking it. I'd be cutting up her toys. She didn't like that, and then this one is just because I was using up all different little bits of yarn. So it's a fun thing to do with lots of little bits of pieces of yarn.
And you show a couple of those in your book, so people will be able to get a good photo of them when they see. Yeah.
And they're fun. They're different. It takes your mind in a different way. Sometimes I get stuck on a landscape, so I switch to something else, just to put my mind in a different direction.
So back to landscapes. What is it about landscapes that has drawn you to them? Have you always hooked landscapes? Is it kind of your comfort place, or what?
I think it is. And I think when I started, I did mostly landscapes that were more primitive. And then as I went along, I decided that I kind of wanted to do them different ways. Some are more realistic, some are kind of a little bit abstract. It started out when I was a kid. I was lucky enough to have a horse, so I was outside a lot. Cat sneezing. And so I spent a lot of my time riding the horse, like through all the fields around our house. I would find old barns and things everywhere, and I would like drag stuff. Poor horse. I would take a rope with me, and if I found something I liked, I would just drag it home behind the horse, like old cans and things from these abandoned barns. So I used to go and just get off the horse, tie the horse up, and go and explore these barns, because they would be like in the middle of fields that were nowhere, like not near any roads. We lived in a really kind of a rural area, so the only way you could get to them would either be a tractor or a horse. So I started loving barns, I think, at a young age.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a natural affinity for them.
I liked exploring them, and it was just something. They're all different, and it seems like they each have a story, and it's just kind of, they always have fascinated me.
Yeah, they have such character.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of a landscape? You probably can't answer that question, but I mean, is it the
Not
sky?
the sky. No,
Or
not
the buildings? Not the sky.
I hate doing the sky. That's what I usually I always do it, and then I'm never happy with it, and I do it over a million times, and I'm still not usually happy with it, but because I want it to have like a certain mood, and it does sometimes, and then sometimes it doesn't.
Well, personally, I like your skies, so I think you do pretty good skies.
Thank you.
And you said something about mood. You are wonderful at capturing the mood in a piece. You can look at something and immediately feel like you're on the spot, surrounded by that type of air and that type of wind and that type of pollen in the air. Even, I mean, you do capture moods really well, and you talk about that in the book too. That's a big part of how you hook landscapes. So I'm in Pennsylvania, you're in New York. Outside my window, the leaves are changing quickly, so I imagine you are really surrounded by autumn color, being even farther north. Are you planning to go out with your plein air kit and create an on-the-spot autumn piece, or do you have a fall landscape in mind? What's up with you right now?
First, I usually take my camera and I'll go around and take pictures. So I do that first, and I did that. I've already done that a couple times lately, and I'll go around and take pictures and see, and then I'll come back and I'll look at them and say which one would I like to do something with. And then I have to think about it maybe for a week and say, do I like this one? Because if I get started and I don't really like what I'm doing, it goes very slowly. But if I get started and I like what I'm doing, it tends to go faster. Or sometimes I'll do something like I'll do a small thing to see whether or not I'm going to like it. Or I'll put them in like Photoshop. So I took these yesterday, I think, and I put them in Photoshop, and I do like weird colors and like this one. I found a weird cemetery, and it only had two like little headstones and all trees around it, and it was right by our house. It was out in the field, and then I'll just change them around. And then this I did. So I did this tree last year. It was a different tree. I don't know if you can see that. But
Yeah. Yep.
Sometimes I'll do these. I'll do like an embroidery.
Oh.
To see.
So that's all with embroidery floss?
Yes, and I'll either do it. You know how like I'll pull little teeny loops.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and make it small. So I just pull like little loops through.
Wow.
And then the back I did like in a long stitch embroidery. So see, this is like just regular embroidery linen. But you can, if you I have yarn as well as wool, so I just take my thin yarn and pull it through as a loop. So
your house must be so full of little bits and pieces and samples and trials and
they're all over the place.
Well, that's a good thing. I
don't know. They're sort of it can sort of take over sometimes, but on the other hand, once you get done with it, they're kind of like you're used to them, so they don't bother me.
Well, and they probably spark another idea. A year from now, you pick one up and think, I started this, but I never finished it. How about trying this way? Or
I do. Yeah, we do that. Yeah.
Well, you're never at a loss for inspiration anyway, so I don't know.
Oh no, because you can try something different, and that's what I'll do. I'll switch from like a 3-dimensional to a hook thing, or I'll do a little hook thing, because sometimes it seems like it's really hard to commit to a really big like rug if I'm not sure if I'm going to like it, so I'll do something smaller. Am I going to like it? Do I like working, because I don't normally work with these kinds of colors. Am I gonna, if I do a big rug with these colors, is it going to drive me nuts? So I try to do things a lot.
So explain to me the appeal of plein air hooking. Sounds like it's fun, but
Yeah.
Sounds like it's a lot of work. Do you do it often?
I drive around a lot, and we we do a lot of like hikes and things where I take the camera. So a lot of it involves a lot of just looking everywhere you go. Like everywhere I'm driving back and forth every day, I'm just looking at things, spending a lot of time looking out at the landscape around me and everything there. And I think that's probably most of it, because then I have to narrow it down to a particular thing. That's the hardest part, because I can see so many different things. And then sometimes I'll drive by something once and I won't have the camera. And that scene is set in my mind, but when I go back, it doesn't look the same. So
Yeah, yeah.
so it's a combination of luck and searching.
Yeah.
But I like being outside. So I've liked that since I was little. So I spend time out there and it feels nice.
Yeah, well, your section in the book on plein air hooking is quite nicely done, and it makes it would make any rug hooker think about maybe going outside for a change. And
It started out by, we used to go on a lot of picnics with the kids and things, and I would always take whatever I was working on along, or take a sketchbook or something, and my husband was always taking pictures, and so that was just a natural like outgrowth thing.
Do you create differently when you're outdoors? When you're in the open?
So. Yeah, I think it's more expressive maybe. And I'm not, because I'm working a little bit faster and trying to get the idea more than all the little fine details done first, that it comes out a little bit more, less constrained maybe.
One of my favorite aspects of your book is that you show different versions of the same rug, how you originally hooked it, then how you went back and you made changes, either the colors or the mood or the techniques, adding quilting, for example, or how you created a second version of the same rug, exploring different ideas you might have. Why do you do that? Should we all be doing it?
Because I think they're all here, and the rugs are here, and I look at them, and I'll look at them for a while and think, I don't like that. And then it will start to bother me. And then it bothers me more and more, to the point where I have to take it apart. and sometimes I'll take it apart over and over, and I still will not really like it. But I learn something each time I do that. And sometimes I'll change the sky over and over. I'll go from a hooked sky to a quilted sky, or change it back and forth, because I just can't decide. I started, I think, my husband quilted before I did, and he does that thread painting thing. And so I learned how to do that from him, and it was his idea. He said one time I was having a lot of trouble with the sky, and he said, why don't you just do a quilted sky behind it? And I was like, I don't want to do that. It just didn't seem right. But then the more I struggled with it, the more I said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to try that. And it went, I liked it. And then it was like, I can do this way. And the skies, I can get the sky to look more how I want by cutting up a little bit of fabric and laying them out. Then I can sometimes by hooking a whole area. It just looks it just doesn't look right to me. So.
Oh, your quilted skies are beautiful, and adding the thread painting on top, that's just brilliant. That's beautiful. I really like that technique a lot.
I didn't know how to do that, and said, well, you just take the sewing machine and at first I was really afraid to do that, but I just tried it for a while, and then I found I really liked it. I don't do it anywhere near as well as he does it, but I liked it.
It's really pretty neat. I am in awe of that technique and your ability to do it. That's great. So my other favorite part in the book is in the plein air section, where you provide the series showing the photograph, and then the watercolor or the sketch or the adapted photograph, where you adapt the colors, and then you start to show the hooking, and then maybe even adding a quilted sky or something like that. That seeing the sequence of how you go through it made me understand that plein air hooking, you don't do the whole thing from beginning to end sitting out there in the field.
No, you really can't.
Yeah. That's the beginning, and then you take it from there, at least in your sense of plein air hooking.
I could do it directly onto, if I thought I could do it, if I had like maybe 5 hours, I might be able to get quite a bit done, and I could do it directly onto the linen. The problem is where we live, you never, it's like Pennsylvania, you never know. It just could rain at any moment or get really windy and then everything's blowing around and you just never really know. So I found it in the beginning, it's safer to start by, taking the picture. And then I was lucky enough to take some classes locally where they taught us how there's like a brush that it contains its water in it, a watercolor brush.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen that.
Yeah. So I just go out with that in a little palette and I can do that really fast, And so that way, if I end up having to leave early, and then drawing it is, I don't draw it really in a detailed manner when I'm doing it that way. I usually just draw it and kind of sketch in where I want the horizon line and the size of the barn or whatever I'm doing. And that tends to work pretty good. So I can get some of it in. And then sometimes I do go back a couple more times to take either more pictures or to work there again, depending on how it's coming out, if I like it or not. And some pictures you just go by and it's like a one-shot deal, like the fog one with the fog and the mist coming off that pond. That was just, that's the only time I've ever driven by that place. And it was like that. So sometimes I'm lucky enough to have the camera and then sometimes I'm not. So
yeah,
it's hard to recreate it if you don't have the camera. You go back there and you think, what was the light? And it, the field's been plowed up or something. And I try and remember exactly how that looked, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, that's it's a nice addition to your book, talking about landscapes and actually being out in the landscape and working on it. That's a really nice aspect, I think.
The other thing that happens is sometimes I'll take a picture and I'll be taking a lot of barn pictures and I can't remember where that barn is. That's just a picture that I wanted to do the design of, so I'll be driving around looking for it.
You better start using GPS coordinates or something.
Yeah.
So you can find your way home.
I know it's somewhere, but there's all back roads, and we live in a rural area of New York where it's mostly they grow a lot of apples and a lot of soybeans, so there's like a lot of crops, and there's so many barns, and they're all different. We have there's a cobblestone octagon barn. There's all different, very strange and unusual barns around here. So.
So what you're saying is you're never going to run out of subjects for your artwork. Yeah.
I couldn't know if I could do barns forever and have different barns, and there's barns all different kinds. So
what's next on your creative list? You must have some plans for the winter.
I don't really know. No, I just don't. We seem to be back to babysitting again. So that kind of slows me down sometimes, and I end up working at night, and I'm not sure what I'll do next. I'll probably do a couple more sculpture things, and there's not too many shows. We usually do a couple fiber shows where we make spindles and yarn and things like that, but pretty much a lot of them were canceled this year. So
yeah, well,
yeah,
here's hoping that next year we'll start to get back to normal again.
Yeah, that will be
get out of our house.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you didn't have room for in the book? Anything you want to tell the audience? Something that you thought of since that you wish you'd put in the book? Any more words of wisdom?
Thank you again to my family and my husband for his support, and my father for showing, always, when I was a child, I did not always appreciate the battleships and the battlefields and all the historical vacations we went on. But now as an adult, I do. So, and my husband, I so appreciate having somebody that I can also bounce ideas off of, which is really, really nice. So if I didn't have that kind of support, like from my family, I think I wouldn't have ever been able to do this.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice collaboration, and it sounds like you're in exactly the right place in New York, and your rural area and all. Yeah.
It's been good. It's a nice place. We have just, it's all pretty much open around us. If you drive like 2 minutes in any direction, it's just farmland, which is good and bad because it takes us approximately an hour and a half if we want to go to any city to get like clothes and come back. So when you think of New York State, you don't always think of that.
Yeah. Upstate New York is not New York City, that's for sure. Oh. Well, it's been a pleasure to visit with you today, Molly. Congratulations on your book. It looks great, and I know people will really appreciate it. I've got to say, it's chock full of good advice for all kinds of hookers, even if you're not somebody who specializes in landscapes. And if you are a landscape hooker, you'll find a lot of great tips and techniques and ideas and suggestions. You're picking Molly's brain, and there's a lot in there. So this is a book that any rug hooker should have nearby. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and creativity, and we can't wait to see what you're working on next.
Thank you very much. I appreciate very much your help in helping me get through this.
Thanks, Molly. You did a great job.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. We're pleased to offer Molly's book to book club members at a special price of $23.95. And book club members can buy extra copies of the book at an $8 discount. Use the promo code you see here, BCHL21. If you're not a member of the book club yet, you can join online at www.rughookingmagazine.com/new book. We have some great books coming up, so we hope you join us. If you are already a member, use the code you see on the screen. If you're not yet in the book club and want to order the book, we have a special deal for you too. For non-members, we are giving a $3 discount off the cover price. Use the code you see on the right of the screen. Remember, we'll be sending you all these links later. And we have a special deal, an introductory offer for new subscribers. Get yourself a subscription to Rug Hooking Magazine for $19.95 for 5 issues, available to those watching today. Use the code you see on the screen, the webinar deal code. A few notes before we end today. This is our 6th webinar. Thanks to the pandemic, we at Rug Hooking Magazine started this webinar series so that we could visit with you and send you wonderful rug hooking information. Click into our webinars for some fun and to meet some interesting rug hooking personalities. Our webinar in August featured several of the Celebration 31 winners interviewed by Jean Shepherd. That event's a great way to capture a behind the scenes glimpse of the Celebration artists and their work. So look for an email soon with a link to this webinar when it's posted online. That email will include the links to the deals we talked about today. Thanks so much to Molly Colegrove for taking time out of her busy life to talk to us about her new book. I love that we can visit with these artists in their creative spaces and talk to them in person. And finally, a great big thank you to everyone for coming to our online events. We appreciate your interest and your participation, and we look forward to seeing you again for the next webinar. Until then, stay safe and healthy, everyone, and keep on hooking. Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.